Greetings, boys and girls. In today's video, we are going to look at fraction and decimal equivalence practice. Now, this is something that we've gone over since, towards the beginning of the school year. So we're just going to practice with it, and we're going to apply the same concept of equivalent fractions to helping us find fraction and decimal equivalence. All right, so we're going to start with the first one. Now, notice this is going to be a lot like equivalent fractions because I see my grid here and I have a hundreds grid. So I'm thinking, I want to know 1/4 is the same thing as how many hundredths. Because if I know how many hundredths we're talking about, it's easy to write that as a decimal. So 4 times what equals 100? Well, if I think about quarters, I know that 4 times 25 equals 100. So then I would multiply 1 times 25, which would give me 25 hundredths. And therefore, if I have 25 hundredths, I can simply write that 0.25. And then I will shade in 10, 20, and then 5 more. Let's see if that's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, there's my 25 hundredths. Notice that I simply used equivalent fractions. 1/4 is the same thing as 25 hundredths. Okay. In the next problem, I have 3/20ths. I'm going to do the same thing. I have to get my denominator of 20 to actually be a denominator of 100, because then it's easy to figure out how to write that as a decimal. So 20 times what equals 100? Oh, I can skip count by 20s. 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. So 20 times 5 equals 100. Therefore, I would multiply 3 times 5 also. And I got 15. So now I have 15 hundredths, which I can simply write as 0.15. Because I know that that's how I would write 15 hundredths as a decimal. I know that the 5 here is in the hundredths place, and the fact that I have 15 means there's at least 1/10 there. Okay, now I can shade in 15 hundredths. Shade in 10 in one bar, and then 5 in the next. All right, that looks good. Now look at the next one. We have 2/5. 2/5. Now I have to get 2/5 to be something with a denominator of 100. So I have to think to myself, 5 times what equals 100? Well, if I go back to this problem here, I already wrote down that 20 times 5 equals 100. So that tells me that I'm going to multiply by 20. So if I do it to my denominator, if I multiply my denominator by 20, I have to do the same exact thing to my numerator. So I'm looking at 2 times 20, which gives me 40. So therefore, I have 40 hundredths, or I could have also gotten 2/5 to have a denominator of 10. 5 times 2 equals 10. 2 times 2 would equal 4. So now I have 4/10 or 40 hundredths. Well, seeing as I only have a tenths grid here, I can simply do 4/10. 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And I can write that as 0.4 and that would be 4/10, or I could add another 0 to make that 40 hundredths. Those represent the same part of the whole. All right, I'm going to give you a few moments to get all of that jotted down if you haven't already. Make sure you're showing the work because that helps you understand where the answers came from. Alright, if you still need some more time, go ahead and press pause on the video. Otherwise, we're going to move to the next screen. Okay, for this one, I want you to take some time and try and solve these. Figure out how to get to a denominator of 10 or 100 so that you can fill in the grid, and that should be familiar to what we've done in the past. So again, remember, we're using equivalent fractions. I will come back in a minute and a half to go over what I would have done. Alrighty. Hopefully, we looked at 3/5 and we realized that we needed to get that to have a denominator of 10. So we simply could have multiplied by 2 over 2, which would have been 6/10, and you would have shaded in 6 of these bars, leaving just 4 unshaded. Now how do you write 6/10 as a decimal? 0.6. Okay, now the next one was what we've done since the beginning of the year. 7/10. You didn't even have to convert that one. So that one you were simply able to write 0.7. Okay, it already had a denominator of 10. And then the final one, 8/25, you needed to get that to something with a denominator of 100. So you're thinking 25 times what equals 100? 25 times 4. So then we would have multiplied 8 times 4, getting 32 hundredths. You can shade in 3 full bars, 3 columns. That represents 30. And then you would have 2 left over. 2 more to shade, I should say, not left over. Hopefully your shading looks much better than mine with a stylist. So 32 hundredths can simply be written as 0.32. Again, we made sure that we're getting to denominators of 10 or 100 because from there it's easy to write it as a decimal. Alright, if you did not get that, please press pause to this video and correct any mistakes you may have made. Okay, in this next section, We just have the fractions. We don't have the grids. So we're going to be using equivalent fractions so that we can write each of these fractions as a decimal. Now 8/10 already has a denominator of 10, so I can simply just put 0.8 because I know that the place to the right of the decimal point is the tenths place. Then I have 1/20. I need to get that to a denominator of 10 or 100. I can't get it to a denominator of 10 because I have 1 in my numerator, so I'm going to just go all the way up to 100. 20 times what equals 100? 20 times 5. So if I multiply my denominator by 5, I have to multiply my numerator by 5. And now I have 5 hundredths. That's not a lot. That's like a nickel. So I'm going to write 0.05. For 17/20, I'm pretty much going to do the same thing. I'm getting it to a denominator of 100. I realize I multiply 20 times 5 to get to 100, so I'll multiply 17 times 5. Okay, so that's 50 plus 35, which would be 85 hundredths. And I can simply write that as 0.85. I'm going to give you all 1 minute to answer the next 3. You can begin. I'll come back afterwards and show you what I did. Alright, hopefully you had a chance to solve these. When you had 4/25, you wanted to get it to have a denominator of 100. So you knew you can multiply by 4 over 4. And that would have given you 16 hundredths, or 0.16. 1/10, it already had a denominator of 10, so you just put a 1 in the tenths place. Then you had 8/25. Maybe you're thinking to yourself, that's twice as much as 4/25. Or you just put 8 over 25, try and get it to a denominator of 100. 25 times 4 equals 100, therefore you'll multiply 8 times 4, which is 32. And 32 hundredths is the same thing as 0.32. If you need to press pause to this video to write down anything that you see, go ahead and do that. But again, keep remembering, we are using equivalent fractions to get to a denominator of 100 or 10. Okay, we have a few more. Let me get you to take some time and solve these. This time I'll give you 2 minutes. Alright, if you still need some more time to work it out before I show the answers, go ahead and press pause to the video at this time. Alrighty, so 14/25 would be the same as 56 hundredths, or 0.56. Notice that I had to get my 25 to have a denominator of 100, my fraction to have a denominator of 100, so I multiplied 25 times 4, and then that meant I needed to multiply 14 times 4. When I had 1/4, I could think about a quarter, or I could just think about how can I get 4 to a denominator of 100. So I have to multiply by 25 over 25, which would give me 25 hundredths. Okay, I had 7/20ths, and I was thinking 20 times what equals a denominator of 100. I had to multiply by 5. Alright, you can check your answers with the others. And if you need some more time to make some corrections, please press pause in this video. Okay, now look, this one's fun. They give us the decimal, and then there's some letter, and it looks really, really confusing. But let me tell you, if I go ahead and rewrite the decimal they gave me as a fraction, it will help me solve this better. Okay? So I know g over 20 equals 65 over 100. I just converted 0.65 into a fraction of 65 hundredths. So I know that they multiplied 20 times 5 to get to 100. And then g, whatever g is, they multiplied that by 5 to get to 65. So what could g possibly be? What times 5 equals 65? I could do a division sentence, 65 divided by 5 equals what? Or I could think about it. I know 5 times 12 is 60, and 65 is just one more 5. So therefore, g has got to be 13. Okay, and I can put 13/20ths. Then if I think of 13 times 5, that is going to equal 65. And I already knew 20 times 5 is going to equal 100. So that would work. 13 is the answer. Okay? So I'm going to take the 0.7, and I'm thinking of that as 7/10. Okay? So now 7/10 equals 7 over W. Well, 7/10 equals 7/10. So W has to just be a 10. They tried to trick us with that one. That one actually wasn't that hard, but if you did not write down what 0.7 looks like as a fraction, it might be challenging. So looking at the next one, remember we want to write what this looks like as a fraction. 0.18 could be read 18 hundredths, so I'm going to write it like a fraction as 18 hundredths. And now I'm going to rewrite it. N over 50 equals, denominator of 100, 18 100ths. Now how do I get from 50 to 100? Well, I would multiply by 2. So then n, whatever n is, something times 2 equals 18. What are you thinking that you can multiply times 2 to get 18? If you said 9, ding, 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 you are right. So 9 over 50, if I multiplied it by 2 over 2, would give me 18 100ths. Check. Okay, I'm going to give you a few moments to go ahead and jot that down. Alrighty, let's look at the next problem. Okay, Paulo built a model car that is 7/25 the size of his dad's car. We have to write 7/25 as a decimal. Well, I'm going to simply do the same thing I've been doing. I want to get 7/25 to a fraction that's equivalent with a denominator of 100. By now we should memorize that 25 times 4 equals 100, so therefore I'd multiply 7 times 4, which equals 28. So my fraction, I can take this right here, and I can simply write 0.28. That is my equivalent fraction, or my decimal, of 7/25. Okay? I want you to take a moment and do the next one by yourself. And in 30 seconds, we'll compare answers. Alright, hopefully you had a chance to solve it. We have 3/20 and we want to make something equivalent with a denominator of 100. So 20 times 5 equals 100, therefore I'd multiply 3 times 5, which equals 15. 15 hundredths could be written as 0.15. Alright, I hope you all were able to get that. And I really hope that we're seeing the connection, how multiplication, division, place value, all this stuff is related. Fractions, decimals. Okay? Now look at this problem. I have Amelia bought 9/12 pound of sliced salami at the deli counter. Which of the following decimals did the scale show? Now, this is one of those times when it's a multi-step problem, but they didn't tell us it's a multi-step problem. Okay? So 9/12. If I list out my multiples of 12, I would have 12, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, 84, 96, 108, yes, 108. Notice that 100 is not actually a multiple. So this tells me I'm going to have to simplify it, because me just trying to get it to a denominator of 100 isn't going to work. So now let's try and simplify 9/12. Let's think of the factors of 9 and the factors of 12. So we can see what the greatest common factor is that we can divide both of them by. Factors of 9, 1, 3, and 9. Factors of 12, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 12. Okay, what's the greatest common factor they share? 3. So now I'm going to take 9/12 and I'm going to divide it by 3 over 3. 9 divided by 3 is 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Ooh, now I have 3/4. Now I can think of 3/4 as a fraction that I can get to have a denominator of 100. Okay, 4 times what equals 100? 4 times 25. So I'd multiply 3 times 25, which would be 75 hundredths. And how would we write 75 hundredths as a decimal? 0.75. Remember, boys and girls, a lot of times you're going to have to do several steps. And they may not always tell you, hey, this is a multi-step problem. But you just have to look at what you have. You see, I listed my multiples helped me realize that I can't multiply 12 by anything, any whole number, to actually get to 100. So I had to simplify, and then I can take my reduced fraction and get that to have a denominator of 100. Okay, pause the video if you need to. Otherwise, we're going to recap. In today's lesson, we used equivalent fractions with a denominator of 10 or 100 to convert a fraction to a decimal. This is a useful skill. It's something that you can use when you start comparing fractions. A lot of times I think about how much is that fraction worth as a decimal, and that helps me put them in order so I don't have to keep looking at different denominators and different numerators. Okay, so this is something that will be helpful for you. Knowing this skill will help you figure out what grades you got on tests, because I don't always put the grade on there, but I will put how many you got right out of how many there were on the whole assignment. Well, I hope you enjoyed, and until the next time, take care.